Thank you for joining us here today. We're joined by Sergeant Mike Levchick of the Buena Park Police Department, and he's going to talk about the specifics of the case within just a couple of minutes from now. We'd planned on having a representative from the FBI join us today as well, but they were unable to attend, but they have given the Orange County District Attorney's Office and this press conference their full support. I'm pleased to announce that the case, as of late Friday afternoon, thanks to the cooperation and determination of many individuals, Robert Giese is back on American soil and in custody and will stand trial for the felony charges that this office filed against him back in September of 2002. Giese stands accused of violating a young boy. He was going through the legal process, making his scheduled court appearances for 3.5 years before he absconded, fled the country. For more than a decade, this office has been working alongside local, state, federal, and international authorities to bring Giese back to Orange County. Together, we've been focused on this day and having him here as we do today. We have a quick video clip to share with you of Giese's return to Orange County, and then Sergeant Levchick will talk about the details of the case. Sergeant.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Levchick. I'm a police sergeant with the City of Buena Park. It's spelled L-O-V as in Victor, C as in Charles, H-I-K. I am our department's press information officer. The Buena Park Police Department became involved in this investigation in September of 2002 when the victim's family reported incidents of sexual abuse against our victim by Mr. Roger Allen Giese. These alleged incidents occurred in the time span from May 1998 to May of 2002, when the victim was between the ages of 13 and 17 years. Buena Park investigators learned that Mr. Giese had been a voice coach for the victim through the All-American Boys Chorus. He had befriended the victim and his family through this position and through an association with the family and their church. During this time period, Mr. Giese allegedly used his friendship and trust to gain intimate access to the victim for the purpose of grooming him. Mr. Giese reportedly told the victim that he was a member of an elite military unit and that he could also eventually become a member of this unit by providing bodily fluid samples to him. Mr. Giese was accused of masturbating, orally copulating, and anally penetrating the victim, as well as masturbating in front of the victim on several occasions in a 4-year period. In September of 2002, the detectives from Buena Park Police Department served a search warrant at Mr. Giese's residence in Irvine, and Mr. Giese was subsequently arrested and charged with multiple felonies. In October of 2003, Mr. Giese posted bond and was released. He subsequently failed to appear for his court proceedings, and he became a fugitive. What transpired over the next several years regarding the location or locating of Mr. Giese in the United Kingdom and the subsequent extradition process will be covered by representatives from the FBI and the Orange County District Attorney's Office. But on behalf of the Buena Park Police Department, we are pleased to see that Mr. Giese is once again in custody and will be now be held accountable for his actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant. You didn't have to go away, but it's okay. It's up to you. So on September 20th, 2002, the Orange County District Attorney's Office charged Giese for his crimes. He posted a $200,000 bond on October 24, 2003, and then after about three and a half years of going through the legal process and making his regularly scheduled court appearances, he failed to appear on March 12, 2007. He was placed on the Orange County District Attorney's Most Wanted list, and then he was also placed on the FBI's Most Wanted list. In 2012, the television show America's Most Wanted received a tip that Giese was living in the United Kingdom under an assumed name. The Orange County District Attorney's Office immediately contacted the U.S. Department of Justice and began an extradition process. As you can imagine, extradition is a sensitive, oftentimes difficult, and lengthy challenge, and we endured several hurdles, but remained steadfast to our commitment to bringing Giese back to Orange County for trial. After a long court process in the United Kingdom, where questions of Giese's treatment in prison, his sentencing, subsequent possible civil commitments, all of these things were litigated, but then the extradition order was deemed final on July 17, 2018. Last Friday, Giese was transported from England to the Buena Park Police Department. Now that he's back, the federal government is expected to dismiss the federal warrant, and Giese will be prosecuted by this office. The Orange County District Attorney's Office remains dedicated to the apprehension and extradition of serious, violent, and dangerous criminals. This office is committed to prosecuting fugitives, protecting the public, and seeking justice for victims. As you can imagine, it took an army of agencies to get to where we are standing here today. I'd like to thank the Buena Park Police Department, the Department of Justice, the FBI, Interpol, the United States Department of State. We also received considerable assistance from the Metropolitan Police Service, their extradition unit in the United Kingdom, the FBI's Orange County Field Office, and the legal attaché in London, and the Department of Justice of International Affairs in Washington, D.C. and London. Before opening the floor to questions, as I'm going to do now, I would just ask you to understand that we're recording this, so please take the mic and tell us who you are before asking a question. Michelle Giese so politely raised her hand and is waiting.
Can we ask a question? We speak up loudly? Just run a little deadline here.
What'd you say, you're burning daylight? You want to get out of here?
We're on a deadline.
You're on a deadline? Okay.
My question is, can you give?
It's not about speaking up loudly, it's about speaking into the mic, and I think I'm sorry, but there's been a little technical difficulty, and we'll get right to you as soon as we can.
Sorry, one moment, please.
So let's just proceed then. Michelle, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you, Tony. Michelle Geely, Headline CBS, LA. Can you please tell us what you know about Mr. Giese's life in the UK? What has he been doing? You know, the name, you mentioned an assumed name. Can you share just a little bit about that, please?
So I was pretty sure you'd be asking that question, and I'm not really prepared to share much in the way of detail on that. Do you have anything?
I do not.
Well, certainly can't mention what the assumed name might be, and I can just tell you generally, it's my understanding that he was working for a church in Hampshire, England.
Would it be possible to ask a starting question?
Yes, sir.
I mean, is this something that your department has been actively?
So what was your name, sir?
Phil Schuman with Fox 11. Give us a sense of, is this something your department has been actively pursuing? Consider it a cold case? I mean, how does your department pursue something like this?
As I indicated, this incident occurred back in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. It was brought to our attention until 2002. We did have an active investigation on it at that particular time, and he was taken into custody and charged with a multitude of felonies. However, after the suspect bailed out and fled the country, we didn't have exactly people from our department chasing him down. That was more of the Orange County District Attorney's Office. So it became a case of where our investigation was completed, but we didn't have him in custody at that time.
Talk about how the issue of civil commitment delayed getting him back here. He was located in 2012. Can you talk about the concerns that were
Sure.
apparently raised by some of the English courts?
So what you're raising is basically a question of that comes up in extradition from time to time, and that is where the sentencing and the procedures are different in our country than they are in the country that we're trying to get the extradition from. We sometimes have problems, like for example, with death penalty cases, when we're extraditing somebody from a country that doesn't have a death penalty. It becomes an issue because they don't generally want to send. They will not send somebody to the United States to receive a death penalty if they don't have it in their country, for the most part. I think one of the major examples of that is Mexico. You know, we had a lot of issues with that. So we need to make a strong representation to let that country know, a promise that we're not going to do that, the death penalty in that case. In this, I'm getting there. I understand, but I'm just trying to put it in context. So, in this case, in sexual assault cases, there's a possibility of a civil commitment following somebody having done their time for the particular crime. So that's the sexually violent predator commitment, and in some small percentage of cases, when somebody's been convicted of a predatory sexual crime, they could be committed if let's say they get 15 or 20 years in prison. After their prison term is completed, if they're still a danger to the community, there's a process they could be committed civilly for a longer time period. And England, the United Kingdom, does not have such a provision, and did not want to send him to the United States and take the risk that he might be civilly committed after having served his time. And so much of the issue that we had to deal with was making the representations to the United Kingdom that he would not be committed civilly after having served his time. And so that there was a lot of litigation about that and whether or not our representations were sufficient.
So that was a stipulation of them handing him over is that he would commit not to go through the civil commitment process after the sentence.
Right. It wasn't really as simple as that because just our commitment didn't satisfy that court to begin with. So it took substantial effort and work on the part of on our part as well as the Department of Justice to make sure that it was committed in this case to the point where he would not be able to get a civil commitment after having completed the sentence for the crimes that he's charged with.
And did you have a problem with that initially? I mean, 'cause I know that's something that you guys use when you feel necessary. Do you have a problem giving that up potentially in the future?
You mean in cases of extradition where the other country is requiring that we give that up? Well, if it's a choice between getting the person here to stand trial or not, well, then we have to make that decision at the time. But honestly, I mean, if somebody's such a significant sexual predator, that of course has to be considered. So, I mean, that said, I wouldn't be able to make a blanket statement saying that we would always give it up and would never have a problem with it. Yes.
Tony, you said he was working for a church. How big a concern was it for you during this time span and all the people who were looking for him that he was doing this there, what he was allegedly doing here to these brothers or boy, that he was doing the same thing there? And do we know if he was committing crimes there in the UK? These types of crimes?
So, question basically is, do we know if he was committing crimes in the United Kingdom? But we don't. We don't know if he was. It does appear that he might have had similar access, but we don't know that he was involved in the commission of any crimes there. Yes. Wait. There was a question right here.
I just wanted to find out, can you talk about maybe how the victim here, how he and his family are, what does this mean to them? Have you been able to talk with them?
You know, to be honest with you, I haven't personally talked to them. So, but our attorney who's we have two attorneys here handling the case, and I think they've had that contact. And I'd hate to make any representations to you if I haven't talked to them personally. I mean, I can just say generally that, you know, it's been years, and they're finally going to be able to have justice done in their case. But I think these ladies will be available after this to give you some lowdown on that. Yes.
Found in 2012 and now, do you know how much of that time is spent still free versus incarcerated in England?
I don't know.
Can I try again on the extradition? I know you explained it, but 6 years seems like a long time for a country that we have like friendly relations with, for someone who's a U.S. citizen.
And I agree.
So, I mean, is it possible you can put in like layman's terms what took so long?
Just all I can say is that it took a long time, for sure, 6 years, and there were multiple hearings and litigations, and the issues were a bit complicated, but the general issue revolved around the major issue that was a sticking point was whether or not he would be incarcerated as a sexual violent predator after his doing his time for the criminal charges, whether there might be a civil commitment afterwards. They don't have that in England.
Right, but why is that even their concern? He's not a British citizen.
The countries that do extraditions often have such concerns, and so you pretty much have to ask them. I mean, but I can tell you that that's their concern.
And can we clarify, was he in custody, Tony, between 2012 and 2016?
In England?
2018?
No,
He was not?
no.
What was he doing at that time? What church?
He was living his life in England, in a town called Hampshire.
Did he have a family or kids or there?
I can't really answer those questions. I don't have the details on that.
Lieutenant, can you talk about grooming? What is grooming in this case?
So were you going to answer that?
If you'd like me to, sir.
Yes.
As far as the comment made about the suspect grooming the victim, basically what that refers to is that in these types of investigations and in these types of crimes, a lot of times the suspect or the perpetrator basically, for the lack of a better term, grooms the person to be able to gain access to the particular victim and to also do their crimes on these people. Basically, what you're doing is that the person would befriend the person, get that person's trust, and try to use that trust in order to have them either submit or have the suspects complete their crimes against the people.
He's been in England this whole time, since the time he left before the 2007 trial. Do you think that he went directly there and has been there the whole time?
Is the question whether or not we think he went directly to the UK? I don't think we know that. Does somebody have the answer to that? Aaron?
Yes, we believe he was in the UK from 2007 to last time.
So you could ask Aaron Rowe that question afterwards.
Tony, today bail was set at $60 million, obviously a very high number. Can you talk about just why, obviously, it's a flight risk?
Right. The bail is set in a high amount right now. Of course, it was set at $200,000, and that wasn't enough to keep him here. He absconded with $200,000 bail, and that bail has long since been forfeited. So the question is now, somebody with ties in a foreign country, what would it take to guarantee his appearance in court? And that's our number.
Do you think he had help there, somebody he knew when he initially went there?
I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
Do you think he had help there, somebody who he knew when he initially went there that helped him get a new identity, get a place to hide out?
Do I think he had help? Yes, of course.
Did he have family connections or something in England?
I don't have the answer to those. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate your attention, and that's the time that we have allotted. Okay.
Sir.
Thank you.